Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying on with us. This is our continuing coverage of the U.S. presidential election. Uncertainty continues. No clear winner yet. But as per the latest coming in, Joe Biden is taking a lead in the state of Georgia, a crucial battleground state. The vote share of both Joe Biden and Donald Trump is 49.4%. That tells you how neck and neck this is. But Joe Biden is leading by 917 votes as per the latest numbers. This state of Georgia has 16 electoral votes, so it's a crucial battleground state. It's also a state that Trump cannot afford to lose. Biden's mail-in ballot advantage has pulled him up on the scoreboard, as the results came in from the Fulton County around Atlanta, with 99% of the state vote count reported. Now, Donald Trump cannot find a way to that magic figure of 270 electoral votes without Georgia and Pennsylvania, which is why we're focusing on these two states for now. His chances of securing re-election will hinge on developments in these two states over the next few hours. But we may not get a call for a while because the competition is that close. Georgia has for long been a Republican stronghold. In fact, southern Georgia has recently become more of a battleground state due to its growing black electorate. It last voted for a Democratic president in 1992, with Bill Clinton taking 43.47% of the vote to George H.W. Bush's 42.88%. And with Joe Biden chipping away at Donald Trump's leads in the states crucial in this contest, if Biden holds his lead and wins the state of Georgia, Donald Trump's hopes of retaining the White House will be dashed. But that, again, is a huge if, as the numbers continue to trickle in. Joining us live on the broadcast is Capri Cafaro, the former Democratic Senate leader from the state of Ohio. Thanks very much, Capri, for joining us here on WION World is One. We have been keeping a close eye on the latest coming in from both Georgia and Pennsylvania. Speaking about Georgia for now, 917 votes is the lead for Joe Biden. If we talk about the possibility of a recount, the state law does not permit a recount straight away, but that happens if there is a margin of 0.5% or less. So a candidate can request for a recount. So we could see things headed in that direction as well.
Absolutely. And you started exactly where I was going to start. The state of Georgia allows for a recount request when the two candidates are between 0.5%. And so obviously this race is that close. It is a razor's edge. And I would anticipate that there is no doubt that this will likely be lead to a recount. We have the two Senate seats there as well that are very competitive. Georgia also has a law that says that if either of the candidates running for Senate drop below 50%, that those seats go to a runoff. Both seats, Senate seats in Georgia, are in that situation right now, under 49%. So both seats will end up going to a runoff, with that election for the Senate going into January, which makes the already very, very close balance of the United States Senate even that, much more contentious right now. So Georgia is very much the center of attention. I think surprised a lot of people somewhat. I mean, you mentioned that there is a demographic shift in Georgia. It has always had a pretty substantial African-American population, but we're also seeing a growing, more diverse electorate, as well as a younger electorate. I think we're seeing shifts in the suburbs as well, around some of the major centers in Georgia, not just Atlanta, but we're also seeing Savannah, for example, and some of the other urban centers and their suburbs, seeing some shifts. So this has been an incremental process for Georgia. We saw back in 2018 that there were gains by Democrats, most notably the gubernatorial candidate at the time, Stacey Abrams, who was able to come very, very close to winning the governor's race in Georgia. And so a lot of that legwork up to this point, I think, has put Democrats in a much more competitive position there. The most important thing right now, I think, about Georgia is twofold. Number one, I think that it will be drawn out because of a potential recount. But number two, and you also mentioned this briefly, that Donald Trump's path to 270 electoral votes and ultimately a return back to the White House is substantially hampered and basically impossible without both Georgia and Pennsylvania. Those are two states that we have seen a pattern over the last 24 hours as the additional mail-in or early absentee ballots have been counted. Those proportionately have been skewing heavily towards Joe Biden. And so even in Republican counties, those votes coming in have been skewing more Democrat because Democrats have chosen to vote early or vote by mail in this election that has been driven by a pandemic. So it's going to be almost impossible, if not totally impossible, for Donald Trump to find a path to victory without these two states.
Let's also speak about what's happening on the streets of the United States. Every vote count versus stop the vote count. That's the world's oldest democracy we're talking about, where the country stands at a juncture where a basic principle of democracy stands in contention. Given what happened just 24 hours back with the judge in Georgia throwing out a petition by Donald Trump, how prepared do you think the Republican camp even is if this does become a legal tussle? How do they plan to even substantiate claims of voter fraud and irregularities?
It's proven to be difficult because, frankly, this is probably one of the smoothest and most transparent election processes that we've seen in recent presidential or general, any kind of election of this scale in the United States. There are cameras that are live streaming on the web in places like Pennsylvania, windows into the counting areas. I know that there has been some concerns about, paper or curtains going up on some of those. I think some of that has been literally for safety concerns of the individual ballot counters in some places. We haven't heard of any major issues with machines breaking or anything like that, or significant irregularities in the few states, both of Nevada and I believe it was Michigan, when asked about if there is any kind of substantial voter fraud, mentioned only one case where someone either tried to vote twice, and in that case was a Republican, and then someone else who tried to get request a ballot for their deceased mother to vote their ballot. So we're not seeing any kind of rampant fraud. And because it has up to this point been incredibly difficult for the Trump campaign and the Republican parties, which basically are partners in these lawsuits with the Trump campaign, to, as you said, substantiate their claims, because by and large they have been baseless. Their charges have basically been rejected by the courts. Now, they did have one ruling that was in their favor to allow election observers in Pennsylvania to get closer. Then they went back and said it wasn't close enough. And so there's been a little bit back and forth. We have to remember, again, that there is a pandemic. We have social distancing protocols in place, too. And so trying to strike that balance. But, out in Nevada, for example, there was, questions about the lawsuit out there has to do with people that are voting that are not residents of Nevada, that are deceased, and a number of other things. Again, we're not seeing any of that bear out. This is not 2000 or 2004, for example, where I was, I was involved in the Gore campaign in 2000, and I was on the ballot in 2004. So I experienced both of those elections up front in real time 20 years and 16 years ago. And there was substantial irregularities in Florida. There were substantial irregularities in places like Ohio that triggered an actual commission in Congress to explore the issues of voter suppression and voter irregularities. We are nowhere near that right now. And that is why it's going to be so incredibly difficult.
Right. Donald Trump addressed the country just a few hours ago. A lot of TV networks chose to not carry that address, alleging that this was spreading misinformation, and they blacked out that address in several of those networks there. Donald Trump has, of course, repeated that claim of voter fraud and irregularities. If anything, this year has not been a smooth ride for America on multiple fronts. Do we expect a smooth transition of power?
Well, I would hope so. I would pray so. That is what we have seen, in the longevity of our representative democracy. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of writing on the wall over the last several months from President Trump about, his potential reluctance to have a peaceful or smooth transition of power. He has been intimating for months about the, potential issues about mail-in ballots. So he has been kind of sowing the seeds of undermining the validity of that process, even though it has been one that has been utilized by a number of states in this country for, anywhere from 5 to almost 20 years in certain circumstances. And now we saw the president of the United States sit in the White House and address the American people and the world, saying that he has won the legal votes. But if this election is given to Joe Biden, it is because of illegal votes. That is both shocking and sad, if not disgusting, in my humble opinion. And I do not say that as a partisan. I say that as an American and someone that believes deeply in our democratic institutions. It is unfathomable to think that the president of the United States would be so self-serving. At a time like this. Yes, all the votes need to be counted. Yes, we need to wait and go through this process. Yes, it is contentious. That's presidential elections in modern American society. That's just what we have to do. Be an adult and sit through it. It's not fun, but we got to do it.
Well, here's hoping that the next few hours give us some sense of clarity, hoping the uncertainty does not continue and it's a smooth ride from here onwards. Thanks very much, Capri, for those perspectives. That's it from me right here.